Party time! Break out your to-do list because there's lots to plan. When you need to know numbers depending on the type of party you're throwing, sometimes an estimate will do. An estimate is an approximate measurement or calculation to get a number that's close but not exact. It's often easier and quicker to estimate. But sometimes an exact number is required. So how do you know which type of answer is needed? Let's find out as we party plan. If you want to have a relaxed luau, you expect friends to freely come and go. This means you won't have an exact head count of how many people will join in on each part of the festivities. But you want adequate eats for all your guests, so you estimate that about 50 guests will come. Your estimate is based on knowing your friends, who's in town, who's away, and guessing how many of their friends they'll bring. You can serve food at a table and replace food as it's eaten. That way, you only pay for what's put out. Here, estimating the possible number of guests can be a quick planning tool. But if an upscale affair is more fitting for the occasion, then you'll have to provide the exact number of meals requested. That's because caterers charge a set price for each prepared meal. If you purchase too many meals, you'll pay a lot for the extra meals. But purchasing too few meals means someone won't get fed. For example, if you expect 60 people at $40 each meal, that's $2,400. But if only 50 people show up, you just spent $400 more than needed for 10 extra meals. If you'd been able to give the caterer the exact number, 50 guests total, you'd still have that money in your pocket. You can see how estimates and exact numbers both have value, depending on the occasion. Party on! Skyscrapers are aptly named. They seem to scrape the sky. Land-strapped cities like New York chose to build up. Unlike many smaller buildings, most skyscrapers' underlying structure relies on a steel frame. When building these structures, which is a better way to figure out a beam's length, an estimate or an exact determination? To construct a building effectively, planning is key. If a piece is too long or too short, either it won't fit into the frame, or if it does, it'll distort or weaken the frame. So architects and engineers carefully and precisely plan. Then these steel workers measure and cut each piece to an exact specified length. Being exact ensures consistency in the frame's measurement and fit. Having a numerical specification ahead of time helps the construction go smoothly. The workers manufacture each piece to fit exactly with the other parts. What if you're building a treehouse? It can be built without exact measurements. Estimating works well enough. The wood beams might be about 70 inches. If one is 72 inches, another 73, and another 70, there's a discrepancy in length among them. But since there's a greater tolerance for inaccuracies in the treehouse, it's okay for this building. However, we can see how estimating a steel beam's length wouldn't be adequate. There is no tolerance for length discrepancies. That would weaken the building's bones. To have a safe and sturdy structure, the builders must determine exact lengths for the parts. Preparing a fantasy wedding involves intricate details. Party planners and brides can be fussy about everything. But there are times when even they give up control and let the caterers do their thing. For hors d'oeuvres, it's difficult to determine how many of the small snacks each guest will eat. It's unlike a main course for which each person gets one plate of food. The caterer estimates how many hors d'oeuvres will be needed based on the number of guests and how many people tend to take. Fortunately, these little goodies are relatively inexpensive per piece. It's unlikely that each guest can predict exactly how many they'll eat, so the caterer estimates a little high to be sure there's enough. Let's say that on average, a guest typically eats 5 hors d'oeuvres during a party. And if each treat is $1.50 and you expect 30 guests, that's 150 pieces at $225. But if after the party you find guests ate only 125 pieces, then you only overspent by $37.50. Since the price is right, it's money well spent to cover the risk of running out of food. A rough estimate ensures there's enough food for all. One thrill of traveling is tackling the unexpected. That's why it can be important to remain flexible. If you could travel in the United Kingdom for a month with £1,000 for spending money, would you want to determine an exact amount of money to spend each day, or should you estimate your daily spending? Let's look at some trade-offs. For an exact amount for each day to be useful, you'd need exact plans to reliably follow. You'd take into account how much less expensive the countryside is than downtown London. Researching exact prices of restaurants and souvenirs can take lots of time. Plus, overseas phone calls to get info can really add up. That's time and money better spent on other things, like on-the-spot decisions. Ooh, how about fish and chips? It makes sense to estimate how much to spend each day based on general information. But you don't have to stick to an exact amount. With £1,000 total to spend for 30 days, worth around $1,800, it's a little over £33 per day. To have extra cash to play with, you can allot £30 per day, divided as £10 a day on souvenirs and the remaining £20 on food. This still leaves money for spontaneity. Also, when you're there, you could choose to spend less than what's budgeted to have more later. Or to spend more one day if you're willing to tighten your spending later. So if you plan to spend around £30 per day, you budget an estimated total of 30 times £30, which equals £900. Knowing that you can use more for city days and less for the less expensive country days, and still leave £100 available for special decisions. By following your estimated budget, you can enjoy your trip and be ready for any surprises.